And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection, I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. Breathing exercises are a good way to relax, reduce tension, and relieve stress. This is because when you breathe deeply, it sends a message to your brain to calm down and relax. The brain then sends this message to your body. We begin today's Open Connection with part 2 of Holding Space for Change.
Absolutely. That's so true. I mean, even taking a whole 3 breaths can sometimes make a huge difference to us. And I forget that. That's something that I forget. Sometimes I need to take 3 breaths and then everything looks different if I take that time to realize I need to take a breath. I do want to move on to from the personal more into maybe our business environments. But before we do that, maybe as a segue, we've been hearing from these ladies how important that community and the people we surround ourselves with is. Whether it's that we need a community to support us, like Thierry was saying, it doesn't work when it's not there, or how we live our lives often as women, also in giving and for our children and for the community around us. Maybe as a segue, can you talk a little bit about what steps women can take to cultivate spaces, to cultivate a community, whether it's in your personal life, your family, your friends, or if it's in your organization, where authenticity is valued and where we're valued in that way?
I think when I hear the word authenticity, I think, as we've shifted into kind of today's realm, people will say, oh, are you authentic? And they'll link it to words meaning are you nice? Are you thoughtful with your words? Are you, meaningful? But I think also being authentic means showing up in our true self at that given time, right? Because guess what? I ain't happy all the time, right? Sometimes, I'm angry or I'm hurt or I'm excited, right? But so when we communicate, showing up in our authentic selves just means showing up in our true selves at that given moment, right? I think many times, especially as women, we're taught to be nice, to, hey, nobody can see me crying, I gotta shake it off. That's how I am at that moment. That's me being authentic. So I think that's what I really want to focus on. It's okay to hold those emotions. It's okay to release them, because we all know what happens when we hold things in. It comes out in all sorts of different ways, right? So when we show up in our authentic selves in our community, with our family, with our coworkers, with strangers, I think that's what's going to help us as individuals move forward. But also, we're human beings, and we all pick up on when people are being fake, right? So I think the more that we're authentic with ourselves, it's, and with each other, we will move forward in a good way, and we'll get past some of those misconceptions and misinterpretations, which can often lead to those harsh environments.
Thank you. And I think that's so valuable, and to focus on authenticity as being who you are truly and what you're going through. It's not easy though, right? It sounds nice. I find personally it's very hard. I feel like I strive to be authentic. But I also have realized, if I'm honest, I like to be liked. I like to have people approve of what I'm doing or saying. And so it's sometimes hard to check in. You have to check in and say, am I agreeing to this because I really agree with this? Or am I agreeing because I think the person wants me to agree and I want to make them be happy with my response, right? So that I'm it's not easy. Tahiri, do you have some words to say on how we can cultivate spaces where it's valuable to, and where people will realize that there's value in us being authentic, even if it means we're disagreeing or showing vulnerability?
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. A mentor is someone who provides advice, support, and knowledge to a less experienced person, often in a professional or educational context. The word mentor became synonymous with wisdom, strength, and guidance. Let us return the conversation as Tahari shares her definition of mentorship.
I think it's a super good question. I don't think I have the answer. I don't think I have an answer. I think in my own life, like as an employer, and I suppose as an employer, I really tried to be a mentor to the young women that worked for me. And that is important. Just instead of just being their boss, how about you be their mentor? And instead of getting angry at them for doing that thing wrong, have a conversation with them about how you would like to see it right and why that matters. And then the authenticity bit is so important. We have to train our daughters. Like it has to, because we weren't in our generation, and in most people, nobody, like we aren't there yet. I think the younger generation is starting to learn how to communicate better with their kids. But I think a lot of us are from the generation of shut up, you don't have an opinion, get in the corner, like you're a kid. And if we could teach our daughters and our sons that it's okay to be truthful about how they're feeling. Don't tell our boys that it's big boys don't cry. Don't tell our girls that big girls don't cry. Say you're sad. Can I help? Is something going on? Like create safety for people, your kids, your friends, your employees, your coworkers, to feel safe. Like most of my life, I have not felt safe being authentic. And I think that goes for a lot of us. I think that is why it's so terrifying to not be liked, because we think that if we're going to tell the truth, we're going to get in trouble. We're going to get hurt, because that comes from trauma. That comes from our little self. So really nurturing our inner child, being a good parent to ourselves, and teaching our kids, again, employees, and providing a safe environment to share our feelings, to share our truths, to be real. Because wouldn't that be refreshing? Like it's funny, I hear like people that go to France and people that go to Germany, they're like, oh, those people are so rude. And then I went there and I'm like, they're actually not rude. They're just telling the truth. But we are so not used to people telling the truth. Does my ass look big in this pants? Yeah, actually. And they're like, you're so rude. It's like, well, you asked. Maybe we can find tactful ways to say, maybe you should wear those ones instead. But, that's just a silly example. But
Germans definitely lack tact.
Absolutely. So learn tact, but be truthful.
Yeah, cultivating a space where you can be vulnerable and authentic and where that might be valued rather than scared.
I'm opening myself up here, but I feel like my true intentions are there, but I don't know about how the team feels, but with my team at N2N, so I have, these 5 to 8 amazing women that work with me throughout the whole year, so they get to see the good and the bad and the ugly of me. And in regards to cultivating a safe, learning, encouraging space for them as well, it also takes a lot of check-in with me, because at the end of the day, I also am leading them to be better, at their job and so forth. And throughout the year, they're all with me. Kalina, Carolina, Belline, Michelle, they're all with me casually part-time, some of them more full-time, and they all have young children. They all work from home, and just really having an understanding in regards to if they can't get things done that week, they need the week off, things aren't getting done, rather than coming down on them, just checking in on them. What's going on this week? I noticed, you notice, right, when your teammate's off. So I think what we forget to always realize is that there's lots going on in people's life personally, and we got to be more easier on each other. There's things going on at home we don't know. And, we're juggling multiple things at home, and we could be going through something, pretty sad or bad or, just challenging at home. And I think that we need to take the time more to just check into the ones that are with us on our team and helping us on our journey. I noticed you're a little off this week. Like, what else is going on? Versus, sometimes I can come off a little direct, but, circle back around and be like, okay, I need to approach that a little differently. And if they can't make it to team meetings, and just being flexible. And I feel that I am fairly flexible. I'm not too sure with all my team looking at me, but, sometimes, sometimes they just can't make it on that day to the team call, or they just they're off that week. And I think I've created a safe space with them to tell me, I'm not around this week. I need some time. And I'm like, that's cool. Pass your stuff on to someone else. And I always encourage them. Your items, we work all virtually across everywhere. Kalina's way up in, Chetwynd and Tumbler Ridge, but we're connected. The challenge these days is staying connected with your team throughout the week virtually. And, we have a group text where all of us are in there checking on each other all week long. We do team meetings on, Tuesdays, and we all have our items to do, when we leave that meeting on Tuesday. And then just entrusting them, it gets done. I don't usually have to check in on them too much. They're all self-motivated and moms and doing other things, and they could be working at night, or they'll work on the weekends, but they know that, what needs to get done and so forth. And just being understanding. I think all of us could be a little bit more understanding, in our work environments and those that we work with. And I know that shit still has to get done, and they know when that comes, right? We're just a few weeks out from the form, stuff has to get done, and everybody gets that done and so forth. But, throughout the rest of the year, it's just creating that space. And then also, with some of them, with Carolina, she's showing interest to do more training and so forth. And, throughout the summer, she's going off to do some more workshops around, being a better MC, because that's what she loves to do. And I think she's been doing an amazing job, and I'd love to support her on that. And good job. But so just sending her off to training and hoping, just listening to what their hopes and dreams are, and how can I support them, to be better at what they want to do as well. And she loves taking this role, and, the others, sending them to other conferences. We also go to conferences, right? Because we want to see how the other conferences are doing and things that we can, maybe pick up from that. And I don't know, just continuing to show up and, also correct yourself. There's a lot of times I got to correct myself too, that I might have come off a little harsh or too direct, because sometimes I get mistaken for being really direct and assertive, and that's just who my character is. But I do have a heart at the end of the day, and I do have some feelings. Ryan always says I have a couple. But yeah, but also just being okay with being assertive and directive, and that's just who I am, and I always embrace myself for those qualities in me, and that's okay.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. Being vulnerable can also come with emotional risk. It can involve sharing parts of yourself that you usually keep hidden, such as fears, desires, and challenges. You might be open to a possibility of being hurt, rejected, embarrassed, or misunderstood. Let's return to the conversation with Lisa.
Approach change. Change is a really tough space. I think I'm right in that right now. I'm also an elected councillor with the District of Houston, and shout out to my fellow councillor, Rebecca Hogan, sitting in the back there. Woo, I see you back there. We're a bunch of badasses on councillor in Houston, her and I, and just shout out to our fellow councillors, Zimmerman as well, and to any other women out here in the room sitting on council. Good for you, because it's a tough space to be, but it's a space that needs change. And I just want to encourage those to continue to stand up for those elected roles, because there's a lot of change needed there, but it's a tough change. And I think that's kind of, the advice I have, if anything, leaving here with change in regards to just, I don't stay in the circle or the square. I'm always on the outside, because I always push boundaries, and I don't like too many rules. And so this being in the district of councillor it's really tough, because there's a good governance rule that doesn't work there. I understand structure needs to be there, but there's a space that really needs to be changed in our local governments that has to fit smaller communities. And it's not a one size fits all. It's what fits for our community, that we need to look after our communities more as elected officials. And that's a tough space to be right now. And so year and a half, into it right now, I'm just figuring that all out right now. And where is my space of trusting that process that you just talked about, that I am doing enough in my little role of, being a counselor and understanding that governance moves very slow. And that's another, not a strong strength for me, is moving slow, because I'm a get shit done kind of person. And I really have a hard time with slow processes. And so I'm really trying my best, but also really trying to trust the process of my space there, because I still got another 3 years in the council, in the district. And even though Ryan and I may be taking a move again in the next few years, when I'm done, everyone keeps saying, well, what about try that process at mayor? But I don't think so. I'm okay at councillors. I keep telling Rebecca she needs to step into that space. But it's just continuing to show up, because like someone said over the last couple of days, us women, we really show up with our heart. We really show up with our passion. And that's tough to do sometimes, and when you have to be in a controlled space of lines, right, and of rules and so forth, and I have a hard time following rules. And so I'm really trusting the process right now of just continuing to show up in that role, because that's a role that is tough for me, right? And I'm struggling right now to just find that I'm doing enough, and is it the space for me? And so just because it's a really tough space to be in, and I want to see that change, and that change takes place in these hard spaces. But sometimes those hard spaces can wear us out. And then, like Ty said, just really making sure that we stay like true to ourselves. And like Mary French said yesterday, like, oh my gosh, don't let the structures and the cultures of other, governances and so forth, just change you. So that's where my journey is in that space, but also in, two spaces in the nation to nation events, right? Like just trusting this space that everybody that needs to be here with us over these 2 days is here for their own reasons, and that we've made a difference, right? Because I don't know, every time I hold these spaces for the conference in Terrace and this conference, I don't know whose life I changed. I just walk out of here tonight and I'll go home tomorrow and continue my life. And I don't know how many lives I affect and, had influenced or not influenced, but inspired, like, whether it was just gathering them together in this room over the 2 days. And I just trust that process, that who needed it left here with that. And I know that, there's lots that takes place over these 2 days, and it's just all about trusting the process and just continuing to show up. And that's all I'll continue to do.
Thank you so much. I mean, I want to thank you all for your honesty and your openness. And I love everything I've heard. And whether it's, taking it a day at a time, I think that's so incredibly important, because we forget, we get so caught up in like, what if and how can I, and it's so far away. So that's incredible. And trusting that it's not a mistake. And even if it's a mistake, it's not a mistake, because if you recognize it and learn from it, then you're moving forward. So it wasn't a mistake. It was a learning, right? And then trusting the process. Again, it's not easy. And I think, like Tahiri said, with art and creativity, intuition and trusting our gut is bred out of us, but we all have it in us. And I think it's our strength as women to trust our intuition. And if we focus on that, we can cultivate it more and start trusting ourselves more. And then things will fall into place easier, I hope, for myself and all of us.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Your younger self is a person you were before you experienced and learned so much more. Reflecting is one way to embrace your younger self. In this final segment of Open Connection, Carolina asks the panelists what advice they would give to their younger selves.
If you could give a younger version of yourself, like a younger woman, some advice on how to think about change, or how to realize when maybe change is necessary and not to be afraid of it,
So you heard me before. I'm not usually speechless, but I'm trying to gather my thoughts right now. It's interesting when you talk about change, and I look at it in the space of employment. We talked about, so I'll be starting a new job on May 6th, which will be actually the 4th job I've ever had in my life as an adult. So that tells you how much I participate in change. I'm excited for it, but there's some things I know that I like consistency of, but I also understand change is growth, right? And so I know as in my career, this new role that I'll be taking on for Western Canada is another elevation of my growth. So change is growth and change is good. I also learned from a personal aspect, change can be hard and scary and uncertain, and you may question if you can do it. I'll share when I had to make the very hard choice of leaving my ex-husband with my 3 children. That was the biggest change besides having them, right? So taking them from this environment into being a single parent without any child support, without another income, just myself and the kids, and trying to navigate through it. Well, guess what? We made it through it. And you do it one day at a time, right? You deal with what you have right at the moment. And I think that's my biggest, my best advice for change is that we go at it one day at a time and we show up in our best selves, and the next day will come.
The first thing that just popped into my head was that there are no mistakes. There are no mistakes. As long as you're being true to yourself, there are no mistakes. And I think faith helps a lot. I have faith in a higher power creator. Really, if we say we actually put our trust in our higher power, our creator, God, I don't care how you identify with it, then why are we not trusting that higher power to be putting us in the place we're supposed to be? Why are we not trusting? Why are we trying to control? Why are we doubting? There's this beautiful quote that says, we are where we are, not by our own design, but by the design of our creator, for our own education and the education of those around us. So even when it is absolutely terrifying, even when, like what you had to go through, when you actually have no idea how you're going to make it, even when you can't see the other side, there are no mistakes. Like really, like I said, as long as you're being true to yourself, as long as you know in your gut and your heart that you're making the right decision. Well, sometimes we don't know. We're afraid of the mistakes, but I think we know. I think when we make that decision, when we make that change, then we know that that's the right decision.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.